On June 26, 2004, a woman's remains were found on a hill near a picnic area at a Missouri rest stop along the Interstate 70. The remains had no head or hands or legs and was only a torso. In such a state, it was impossible to identify whose torso it could be. The brutal manner in which the body had been dismembered shocked even the most experienced of investigators. Even though a huge team of detectives worked on the case, they weren't able to crack it for 19 long years. But who was the victim, and why were they murdered in such a brutal manner? Hi, and welcome back to Mysterious Hook. Today we are looking at a cold case that was solved by a DNA match after 19 years. But first, if you are new here and haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please consider clicking the subscribe button, as it helps and motivates us to create more intriguing content for you. So without any further ado, let's dive right into this mystery. Today's story takes us to Wright City, Missouri, a charming Midwestern destination with a population of only 4,300 people. Its location along the busy Interstate 70 has made it a hub for transportation and logistics businesses, attracting entrepreneurs and visitors from across the state. However, Wright City is much more than just a transportation hub. This historic downtown area features unique shops and delightful eateries, making it an inviting spot to unwind after a busy day of exploring. The city's highly regarded school district is committed to education, offering top-notch schools for children. Wright City's mix of small-town charm and modern convenience makes it a destination with something for everyone. But like all good things, it too had its dark secrets hidden away from the world. June 26, 2004 was a serene day in Wright City, Missouri. However, the city was stunned when a maintenance worker stumbled upon a gruesome discovery in a rest area along the bustling Interstate 70. While trimming the brush, the maintenance worker noticed something suspicious. Out of curiosity, he went to investigate it further and ended up uncovering a decapitated torso. The sight sent shockwaves down his spine. He immediately called the police and informed them about what he had found. It was a discovery that shocked the town of Wright City. The human remains had no head or limbs and was simply a torso. Since the remains were found in a secluded area, investigators theorized that the body was dumped in this area, but the victim was most likely killed elsewhere. But what they found provided more questions than answers. The torso was dressed in a simple black bra, and there were scars from a previous appendectomy and C-section visible on her body, but not much else. All the investigators found at the crime scene were some DNA samples on the victim's body and a knife. After an initial examination of the crime scene, her torso was taken for an autopsy, but because the body was without hands, legs, and a head, it eliminated almost all possible ways in which she could be identified, making it impossible to know who the victim was and how she ended up in that place. As there was not much evidence found at the crime scene, police were relying on the autopsy report for more information. But unfortunately, even the autopsy report could not pinpoint an exact cause of death. It was suggested that the neck had been ruthlessly severed, but it was impossible to clearly say how she met her demise. Initially, it was believed that she was a victim of organ trafficking, but they found that no organs had been removed from the body, which indicated that the murder was not to steal her organs. The case left investigators scratching their heads as they tried to piece together the puzzle of her final moments. The discovery set off a major investigation, with many detectives working tirelessly to find any leads that would help solve it. This was the start of a lengthy investigation, which would puzzle police for many years to follow. As a first step, investigators interviewed people who lived in the nearby area and urged them to jog their memory in search of something unusual they might have witnessed in the area around the time of the discovery of the remains. Some witnesses said that they saw a white utility van in the area the day before the torso was discovered. But while that information looked promising, it did not generate any new leads. Even after a thorough investigation, the police could not come up with any suspects. Without much evidence or suspects, the case eventually went cold. The investigation was reignited in 2014 when Lieutenant Matt Schmutz of the Warren County, Missouri Sheriff's Department took over the case and started to investigate missing persons in the area that matched the characteristics of the victim. The following year, he began to talk with investigators in Madison County, Illinois on a missing persons case that shared similar traits. Then, in April 2006, a person who could have been from the woman's family, whose name was Brian Barker, went to the Warren County Sheriff's Department when he realized that the torso could be his sister's. He provided DNA for an identity test, but the testing was inconclusive. Brian refused to give up on finding his sister's killer, even when all hope seemed lost. Even though his initial attempt to provide DNA evidence failed, he didn't give up. After years of failed attempts to identify the remains found in rural Missouri, a new lead was finally uncovered. This lead was Ashley Kinnear, who was likely the oldest daughter of the woman, and who was contacted due to information Brian gave to the police. An expert suggested getting DNA samples from the woman's relatives, including her oldest daughter, Ashley Kinnear, and 2 other siblings. Thankfully, they agreed to provide the DNA for testing, which ultimately led to a breakthrough in the case, and in 2016, the Missouri lab found a match. Finally, the identity of the torso was revealed. It was stated that the victim was Deanna Denise Howland, also known by her aliases Deanna Froelich or Deanna Kinnear. Records show that Deanna was married more than once and had multiple aliases, including Deanna Barker, Deanna Kinnear, and Deanna Froelich. She had at least 2 children and was born in Belleville, Illinois in the United States. Despite her struggles and the difficulties she faced in life, Deanna Denise Howland was a person with hopes and dreams, loved by her family and missed by those who knew her. Her tragic death at the hands of a murderer is a reminder that every person, no matter their struggles, is deserving of justice and respect. Deanna was a woman who lived a troubled life, battling addiction and often living as a transient. She was known to frequent areas of Illinois such as Granite City and East St. Louis, and was recognized by many as a prostitute who had problems with the consumption of illegal drugs. Despite her struggles, Deanna was a caring mother to her children. Her daughter Ashley Kinnear remembers her as a loving and devoted parent. Ashley became concerned about her mother's well-being when her mother failed to show up for a school play that she had promised to attend in May 2004, and there was no further contact after that. Deanna's disappearance was out of character, and her daughter knew something was wrong when her mother didn't even call her on her birthday, something she never missed. For all this time, Ashley had been confused and disheartened regarding her mother's disappearance. She had tried to contact every possible person she could think of or knew about, but still she had gotten no information about her mother. The only thing she could do was wait for her mother to show up one day. From this, it is clear that despite her troubles, Deanna was clearly a caring and loving mother who always made an effort to stay in touch with her children. After years of investigation and diligent work, authorities finally made a breakthrough in the case of Deanna Denise Howland in 2022. The suspect was found with the help of a DNA report. The DNA that investigators got from Deanna's body and from the knife which was found at the crime scene was what finally helped them crack the case. The defendant, whose identity has been released, was linked through his DNA evidence that investigators found on Deanna's body. It took years of testing and analysis through forensic genetics to make the connection, but the evidence was finally conclusive in 2022, which led them to a 63-year-old man. The man was identified as Mike Anthony Clardy, a longtime resident of Maryland Heights, Missouri. The quiet life that Mike Clardy and his wife were leading came to an abrupt end when police arrested Clardy on January 10, 2023 at their Maryland Heights home. This wasn't the first time Clardy's life was disrupted, as he had an accident in 2004 that rendered him legally blind. But this time, it was due to his alleged involvement in this heinous crime. The suspect was able to hide from the police for 2 decades, but was finally identified. Despite these accusations, court records show that Clardy was not linked with any other killings and did not have a criminal record. But now, Clardy is facing second-degree murder charges in relation to the killing of Deanna Howland. The next step was to uncover the whole truth behind the heinous crime. Clardy, who had been compliant with the arrest, was brought in for interrogation. As the detectives probed deeper into the matter, they questioned him about the details of the murder, and more crucially, about the remains that were found. In 2023, after almost 2 decades, justice was finally served for Deanna Denise Howland as her killer Mike Clardy was charged for her murder. The St. Louis Prosecuting Attorney's Office filed an indictment stating that Clardy confessed to killing Howland in June 2004, as well as scattering her remains across multiple locations. Despite his initial denial of involvement, Clardy reportedly admitted to officers that he murdered Howland after a disagreement in his home, where she had been working as a sex worker. He admitted to spreading the victim's remains throughout the St. Louis and Warren counties. He is currently being held on a bond of $1 million in Warren County as the investigation continues. The announcement of the indictment by the Major Case Squad of Greater St. Louis marked a significant breakthrough in a joint investigation between multiple law enforcement agencies. If found guilty, Clardy may face a lengthy prison sentence of up to 40 years. Finally, the truth is being unveiled and justice may finally be served for Deanna Howland nearly 2 decades later. After the heart-wrenching news of her untimely death, Howland's loved ones never lost hope that the perpetrator of the heinous crime would one day be brought to justice. And finally, after years of tireless investigation, Clardy was apprehended and the veil of mystery surrounding Howland's murder was lifted. As the sheriff's office released details of the case, the community was left in shock and disbelief, learning of the DNA evidence and other gruesome details that had been withheld for years. Though they will never have her back, her friends and family can find solace in the fact that justice has finally been served. At a press conference in St. Louis, Deanna Howland's daughter, Kinnear, expressed her gratitude towards everyone who had taken an interest in her mother's story. It was an emotional moment as she thanked the crowd for their support and for not giving up on her mother's case. Kinnear revealed how she always knew that something had happened to her mother and that she would never have abandoned her family without a word. She appreciated the fact that people were interested in getting to know who her mother was and the impact she would have had on their lives if she were still alive. It is clear that Deanna was a kind and devoted woman who meant the world to her loved ones. Kinnear's words touched the hearts of many, reminding us all of the importance of not forgetting the lives of those lost and the loved ones they leave behind. The case of Deanna Howland is a tragic reminder of the impact that violent crimes can have on individuals, families, and communities. The arrest and confession of Clardy may bring closure to those affected by Howland's murder, but it can never fully undo the harm that was done. Ultimately, it is up to the justice system to hold the perpetrator accountable for their actions. But what did you think of this tragic case? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more intriguing content.